Ladies and gentlemen, people of Somers Town and beyond, welcome all to this fine ceremony. I am Hachaliah Bailey. Reports of my demise, being kicked in the head by a horse, are greatly exaggerated. For I have risen from Ivandell by the powers of imagination to regale you, to reveal a secret about Somers and the American circus. So gather round over here, open up your ears, and I will open up your imaginations, and dare I say, fill your heart with a story of woe, wonder, and a surprise. Indeed, my friends, you learned that a long time ago, I went out to the Bullhead Tavern down in the bowels of the Bowery on Old Manhattan Isle, and there met with a crusty old ship's captain who told me as I quaffed my flip. And by the way, flip, you'll be interested in this. It's beer, rum, a little bit of molasses, and a hot poker. And it poked my imagination when he said, "Mr. Bailey, there's a creature I have out back that's ne'er been seen in these parts, save for but once, up in Beantown of Boston. But you have an opportunity here, Mr. Bailey." So round to the back of the Bullhead Tavern went I, and there I saw an exotic-looking fellow. He had a well-coiffed beard and a turban. His skin was colored like the bronze in the statue there. His eyes twinkled, and he gestured, and there I spied it. There I clapped my eyes upon something that no eyes had clapped their eyes upon since the days of the Ice Age, when great hairy pachyderms roamed round these parts. What did I put my eyes upon? Well, my friends, especially my young friends, could you give the crowd a hint? You can, if you go like this, put on your long trunk, and say, "Ah!" Once more with elephantine feeling. "Ah!" I spied an olephant, a pachyderm, an elephant. And I thought, that would make a fine plow animal. Imagine how I could turn over the lands here in Somers Town to plant in my fields. And so I says, "How much do you want for this fine exotic creature?" Well, the man pulled on his chin and he said, "Hachaliah, this is going to sound like a lot of money, but I predict it will bring a lot of not just money, but of joy to all those who, like you, clap their eyes upon this elephant." And then the fine fellow with the turban and the beard stood, and he waved his stick, and the creature stood up, and it gave another trumpeting trumpet. Could you make that trumpeting trumpet sound? Everyone go, "Ah!" I said, "What do you want for it?" And he says, $1,000. Now, I see this fine fellow wondering, yeah, but that was in about 1804. How much would that be in today's money? It would be $25,000. You have that in your pocket, don't you, right now? Well, I wrote him out a note and agreed to purchase the creature. And then we put it on board a sailing sloop and wended our way up the majestic Hudson River as the sun sank. And then we arrived at Croton Point, and I proceeded with that beast along the turnpike that I helped build right over there. But these strange devices you see wheeling about were not there present. No one was about, save for a boy and a girl, and they heard this along the turnpike. Let's make that trumpeting sound again. Ah! And there they opened up their eyes and peered out of the window, and their eyes grew wide as saucers, because they were seeing a creature not seen around here since the Ice Age. And those creatures were woolly mammoths, but this was an elephant. So kids, make your eyes wide as saucers and look upon the bronze statue there and imagine that creature wandering along, and imagine you have never seen the likes of an animal like that before. And when I saw the children's eyes fill with wonder, I thought, why, this animal will be more than a creature in front of a plow. It will open hearts and imaginations. And I thought, I think I can get a nickel for everyone who wants to come to view this creature. And that launched me on my journey, exhibiting that pachyderm, that elephant, in places far and wide. And living in a place like Somers, a place of enterprising and creative people, others joined in with the names of Purdy's and Crane and Wright and many more. And they were right to join in my endeavor. Soon, we purchased other exotic animals from far and distant lands. Pumas, a giraffe, a zebra, lions fierce, and even a rhinoceros. And eventually, we went traveling out with this menagerie of animals. And the people of Somers and nearby began to do something that no one else was doing across the entire newly United States. They were farming, they had cows, they had chickens, they had sheep, they had horses, but no one except the people round and about here had a rhinoceros, lions, tigers, perhaps even bears, but certainly a rhinoceros. Why, there is a brook not far from where we stand, known as Rhinoceros Brook. You'll find no Rhinoceros Brook down in New York City, or up in Boston, or even in this fine fellow's Philadelphia. No, it's just right around here. An exotic name that speaks of our illustrious history. Now, I'll tell you about a kind of entertainer known as a funambulist. That would be someone who could walk across a high wire, someone who could juggle 7 balls at once, someone who could literally bend over backwards and put their feet up in the air and have someone stand on their feet. Would you like to try that out right now with this young lady over here? Maybe we'll do that a little bit later. They were called funambulists, also known as acrobats. But back in the early 1900s, if you saw someone walking on the high wire, they would be dressed in a most shocking way. Look at those people. They're wearing leotards. They were shocked. Why, this was in the days when women wouldn't dare go out in public wearing pants. Yoga pants, not at all. They would wear fine dresses. And the gentlemen, the boys, would be dressed like me. So to see someone in leotards caused many to say, "Be gone, you funambulist! Be out of here, you acrobat! Don't show off your bodies!" And thus what could be shown? The animals! But still, there were some who objected to the exhibiting of lions and tigers and bears and rhinoceroses and giraffes and elephants. Up in a place in the dark corners of Maine, there was a fellow who said, "Dang it! There should be no folk running around showing off no elephants, keeping people out and away from doing their sacred duties and farming in their fields, and blammo!" After 10 years of entertaining, old Bett got shot. But my friends, don't start to cry. This lady's beginning to weep. And over here too, this lady's thinking, why did they shoot an elephant? What kind of a person is that? Oh yes, old Bett met with a terrible demise. But old Bett is still with us, not just in the form of that statue, but in and about as a presence, perhaps even as a... This is the scary part of the story. Old Bett, you're going to jump. Hold on to your socks right now. Old Bett drifts round and about, presiding over people who are shopping, whether it's the Tuskers playing football or volleyball, whether it's you going over and enjoying a conversation in the bagel shop, or being across the way at the little bagel estate over there. Old Bett watches over us all. And every now and then, the wonderful old elephant will give a trumpeting trump. You got scared, didn't you? But that's Old Bett protecting us here in Somers. Now, I'll let you know, too, that after the demise of Old Bett, I went out and bought another Bett, and I went into business with members of my family and folks with the names of Owen and Purdy and Wright and Grant. Oh, yes, there was a time when some of my partners attempted to swindle me out of Old Bett. So, you know what I did? I said, I'm going to do to Old Bett what that old farmer up in Maine did. And they got so scared, they paid up their debts owed to me for showing Old Bett. I, of course, was never even intending to think of harming the new elephant. Eventually, when I had earned enough money, I thought, I want to give back to the people of Somers. And thus, in 1825, I had this structure constructed. Dare I say I did use the help of some who were enslaved, but eventually they were set free to be as enterprising as was I, and joined up and helped me with now what became a circus, because eventually people let go of being afraid of people in leotards. Remember those somnambulists walking across? They remember them over there. And the circus began to become a traveling show with animals and acrobats. Now, what do you think it was like? Had you been living around at the time when this Elephant Hotel, a stop along the Somers Turnpike, was made? You know what you would be doing right now? You know what might be in your basement? The proverbial barrel of monkeys. Raise your hand if you've heard of a barrel of monkeys. Raise your hand if you have a barrel of monkeys in your basement. Raise your hand if there's someone in your house who acts like a monkey. Yes, I can tell. Well, once upon a time, a reverend from Mount Zion Church visited with the Crane family, and the reverend disapproved of these exotic animals being kept in Somers barns. So, the parents said to the children, "Shh, don't let the reverend know we're keeping monkeys in the basement for Hachaliah Bailey." And they sat down to dine. "Would you like some soup? Reverend, would you lead us in a little prayer? Tell us, how is the weather? Are your strawberries and tomatoes growing?" And then they heard this sound. When they said, "How grows your tomatoes? Could you please make the sound emanating from the basement?" When the reverend was having dinner at that house, everyone go, "Hoo-hoo-ha! Hoo-hoo-ha!" What was that? Well, that was our boy. And the boy, on cue, pretended he was a monkey. "Hoo-ha! Hoo-ha! I just like to make sounds," said he. The reverend went on, "Did you enjoy my sermon at church?" And just as they were about to say, "Oh, very much inspiring," the monkey sounded again, and they went, "Hoo-ha! Hoo-ha!" Would you make that sound? What do you mean to make a sound like that? Well, then they pointed. The little girl said, "Oh, I like to make monkey sounds too." And then the reverend said, "Are you keeping wild animals in your cellars, in your basements?" And the people were silent. But then once again they got outed by the monkeys. Everyone go, hoo-ha, hoo-ha, hoo-ha! That's it! The Reverend threw down his napkin and opened up the basement door, and down he went. And there he found a great barrel. He threw open the lid, and all the monkeys went, hoo, 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 ha, 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 and they ran out, and they tweaked the Reverend's nose. Go ahead, maybe squeeze your own nose or the nose of someone next to you. Don't squeeze out any snot, though. And that made the Reverend laugh, and he thought, well, forgive me, but I can see keeping wild animals can be fun. And thus he approved, and folk round and about in Somers and beyond kept animals through the winter in their barns. Now, before I let you ask me a few questions, a frightful tale. How many of you have ever seen close up a lion? Didn't a lion eat your lunch? And didn't you pet a lion once? Just for pretend? You would like to have a pet lion, but your mom said no, you have a cat instead, right? Well, down the road across from the Mount Zion Church is the house of the Wright family, W-R-I-G-H-T. And a fellow by the name of Charles Amberg from Fishkill and Charles Wright had a lion, and they would bring it around in the early American circuses to display. But one day, Charles Wright said, "Watch this! I know that lion well!" And in front of a crowd of young and old gathered round, Charlie opened up the cage door. So you know how it was. Grip the door and make a creaking sound. Go, ah. And now, when the door opened, the lion bared its teeth and gave a roar. Show your teeth and let me hear a magnificent lion's roar. Roar! Be careful. People in that car over there think there's a real lion over there. They're gonna miss their bagel stop. But Charlie Wright knew the lion and knew it was just saying hello. And when its mouth was opened, with fangs as long as your fingers. Make believe you have fangs as long as your fingers like this. And maybe bite someone next to you just for pretend there. Ah. Charlie then said, "Ladies and gentlemen, this may be the last you ever see of my head. I will be like the headless horseman of Sleepy Hollow. If I have not guessed right about this lion, I am going to put my head in its mouth." And everyone cried, "No, Charlie, don't do it! Don't do it! Ah!" People covered up their children's eyes. Are you afraid of this part of the story? I know you scare easy. You better cover your ears too. And then, when the lion's mouth was opened, with teeth long as your fingers, Charlie Wright put his head inside the lion's mouth. And wonder of wonders, the lion let him keep his head and receive not only a round of applause, but a showering of nickels. Don't worry, you don't have to shower me with nickels. I've been well cared for by the powers that be. And Charlie became the one first to put his head inside a lion's mouth. And where was he from? Not New York City, or Boston, or Philly, but from Somers! Forget about it, hey, don't forget about it. And then on he went to achieve many such honors, showing off not just the lion. And my friends, I gathered together many to create the Zoological Institute. But before I wrap and pause for questions, sometimes will say, "Hey, Hachaliah Bailey, you were the guy you got together with P.T. Barnum." Listen, my friends, 'tis not true. I'll reveal now the secret of P.T. Barnum. He was just a clerk working in a store in Bridgeport, Connecticut, when I came sauntering in. He says, Mr. Bailey, long I've admired you. I said, what's your name, son? Phineas. Phineas, if you're enterprising, willing to take a risk like I did, and purchase an exotic animal for $1,000, and above all, show people that it is a wonder, you can go on to do great and glorious things. And that set him off. And he joined forces with a relative of mine, Frederick Bailey. The fellow had been orphaned, and when he began to work with my nephew, Frederick, so inspired was he took on the name of Bailey. And long after I met with the demise, when a certain horse put up its hooves and brought it to my cranium and sent me for a long rest down at Ivandale, I lived on in the form of my nephew, who went on to form the greatest show on earth, an enduring circus today, P.T. Barnum and Bailey's Circus. And these acts, these displays of animals and acrobatics live on today. And you and me, as good citizens of Somers, can thank the industry and the wonder and the imagination of those who went before you to create the American circus and to create this unique place known as Somers. Well, friends, I'm Jonathan Kruk, sometimes known as Hachaliah Bailey, thanking you kindly for your time and attention. Thank you much. But wait, there's more. There's wonderful displays going on inside. And if you have any questions or queries, I'd be delighted to ask. And if you'd like to take me home in a certain form, I have a little bookmark over there, and you can look up and see the peculiar and wonderful things I do on some magical device known as, or application known as YouTube. So, YouTube. Does anyone have any particular queries, questions, comments about the American circus? This fine fellow here, yes. Why did he put his head into the lion's mouth? Because he was bold, he was daring, and he wanted to earn more nickels because he wanted to maybe invest in another exotic lion or an animal. So he figured he had to take it one step deeper and beyond. So Charlie Wright put his head in a lion's mouth, and his friend Van Ansburg from Fishkill continued with that act. Anyone else have a question about the circus, about Hachaliah Bailey or Somers? Anyone wants to? I'll give you a card here if you like, and you can find out more about what I do. All right. And that story about the barrel of monkeys originating here is true. And now you know, when you hear the expression, those kids are more fun than a barrel of monkeys, it comes from Somers there. There we go. All right. Did you want one too? There we go. Well, yes, my friends, again, an honor to be here. And you heard earlier Hal and Marty playing on the harmonica. He would have made a fine actor in one of my circus shows. Imagine him dressed up with an adorable party-colored suit, coming out and regaling all with a harmonica. People would have been showering him with nickels and kisses for doing so. And I may kiss him later for making me sound good right here and now. And you're welcomed. I think, can we go into the building now? And there's some interesting displays, wonderful things to see here. So you don't have to go to Walmart or go shopping now or do homework. You can come and learn a lot right here at the Elephant Hotel. Thanks again. I'm Jonathan Kruk. Thank you.